Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Wielded Infinity Gauntlet. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku flopped onto his bed, sore from another of Bakugo's beatdowns. He groaned quietly, looking around at his room filled with hero merchandise. He wanted to be a hero, but without a quirk, without power, he felt worthless. Ever since he had read those old Marvel comics as a kid, he had dreamed of being a hero. He was fascinated by them. He pulled one of his favorite comics from the shelf, the Infinity Gauntlet. In this issue, the heroes didn't win. The villain, Thanos, only lost because of his ego. He believed nobody could stop him and didn't take powerful beings like Hulk and Thor seriously enough. Izuku had always wished he had the Infinity Gauntlet. The good he could do with absolute control over space, time, and reality itself. Suddenly, there was a flash of green light, and the Infinity Gauntlet appeared on his left arm. It fit him perfectly, and all the Infinity Stones were present. As Izuku opened his eyes, he could feel reality around him. He sensed all of space and the energy and power within it. He could tell there were souls and minds around him. He could see time. Izuku realized he didn't even need to tap into a fraction of the reality or mind stone's power. Their passive energy amplified his base abilities and senses tenfold. He mused to himself that this must be his quirk. He remembered reading this very comic on the day of his 4th birthday and wishing for the gauntlet then, just as he did now. An item-creating or summoning quirk. He wondered if that was why it took 10 years to manifest the Infinity Gauntlet. A tool of this caliber would take many years to create, even with a quirk like his. He recalled reading that gaining immense power in a short period of time changes people, makes them arrogant and greedy. Yet he felt fine. He just had the Infinity Gauntlet now. He knew he would freak out the moment the shock wore off, though. Deciding to test his new powers, he thought about how he could feel the fabric of the universe, even touch it, but he couldn't control it yet. That would take time and practice. Many people would kill for the gauntlet, so perhaps he should keep it hidden. Izuku went to Dagobah Beach, hoping to train himself for the upcoming UA exams. He declared that this would be the perfect place to discover and master his new powers. The Infinity Gauntlet was impossible to master. It was physically impossible to train every ability the gauntlet had. There were infinite possibilities. On their own, the stones were stupendously powerful. But if you took two and merged their powers into one, you got an earth-obliterating power. The Time Stone and the Power Stone were both powerful apart, but together? Anything the Power Stone injured could be affected by the Time Stone's abilities. If Izuku used the Time, Space, Reality, and Mind Stones together, he could conceivably alter history as he saw fit. However, Izuku was not interested in history, he only cared about the future and everyone suffering in it. His most useful combo ability came with the Soul and Reality Stones. He could cancel, awaken, and delete quirks however he wanted, but he needed to physically touch the target. What if he added the Power Stone? Nobody would be able to stand before him, not even All Might himself. Izuku moved his left hand forward, the green Time Stone glowing on his thumb. A green sigil hovered over his palm as he rotated his arm to the left. A broken television suddenly became fixed, the shattered glass jumping back into the screen. The plastic became clean and untarnished, and the power cable snaked out from behind a fridge and reattached itself. He was presented with a seemingly brand new television. The greenette laughed, realizing this was going to be fun. For all his theorizing, Izuku realized he wasn't ready enough for the gauntlet's full power. In the old Avengers film, the most powerful being in the universe, Thanos, had fried himself trying to use the gauntlet. Izuku could only use one stone at a time or a weaker combination, like the quirk canceling ability. Just deleting or blocking a single quirk factor was child's play, even for someone like him. He knew he would need to train. He needed to bulk up and slowly acclimate his body to the gauntlet's full power. He trained with the Time Stone first, as it was arguably the most powerful. It could bring people back to life, heal recent injuries, and in conjunction with the Reality Stone, It could make a crippled man fighting fit. Izuku looked for any broken and discarded appliances and fixed them. He rewound the objects to their former state and sold them to be used again. Nobody questioned it, as you could find all kinds of stuff at Dagobah Beach. The second stone he trained was the Reality Stone, another contender for the most powerful stone when used solo. He muttered to himself that reality could be whatever he wanted, turning a fridge into bubbles that floated away. He was starting to understand why Thanos had been so arrogant and egotistical in the comics. He had only tasted 2 of the stones at about half power and couldn't even imagine what having all the stones running at 100% permanently would feel like. He wasn't drunk on power or becoming egotistical just because he had power. He still remembered what it was like to be weak. Bakugo still bullied him every day. The Greenette was just a little more confident, no longer the meek Quirkless boy that everyone could pick on. He confused most of the bullies. When he rounded a corner, he just disappeared. They chalked it up to luck though. Izuku still had a year until the UA entrance exams. He had only trained the time, reality, and space stones, but he was already the most powerful being on the planet. Time, space, and all of reality bent at his whim. He wasn't proficient with the stones yet, and his body hadn't adjusted to their full power, but he had been gaining control at a steady pace for each of them. It was 10 months until the entrance exam. Izuku had experienced the Soul Stone's power a month ago, but only to test it out. He was concentrating on the first 3 for now. It was an incredible experience. Its passive ability let him feel living things around him, their very life force. Actually using the stone allowed him to feel and connect to every soul on Earth and mold them however he wanted. He hadn't changed anybody, though. He had only tested it on a flock of nearby birds. He gave one of them Bakugo's personality, copying and pasting it into the bird. It had proceeded to attack any bird that looked at it sideways. The space stone was by far the simplest to master. Izuku had around 80% of its full potential at his fingertips right now. He would have full control over space itself in time for the entrance exam. He could create portals, teleport himself, move objects instantaneously through space, warp the distance between places, and make a journey longer or shorter for a person. Izuku had 60% of the Time Stone's full power unlocked. He could alter things' state to a previous or upcoming one. He could target the specific area he wanted to rewind or fast forward to, which was perfect for healing injuries. The Reality Stone was immensely powerful, even when used by itself. Izuku only had about 55% total control. He estimated that when it reached 100%, he could make a person quirkless with just the Reality Stone alone, and no contact would be required. At the moment, he needed the Soul and Reality Stones working together to achieve that. Izuku had used the Power Stone on a pile of broken fridges. It was pure, unbridled power in jewel form. There was nothing left. It had probably been atomized. Izuku had broken his arm using the Power Stone at only 30%. He fixed it with the Time Stone but made sure to stick at 20% in the future. The Mind Stone was tricky too. There was no way to train it without using it on a person, so he held off for now. Izuku was walking home when he was attacked. A villain made completely of sludge lunged at him. Izuku dodged the first attack and summoned the gauntlet onto his left arm. He used the Reality Stone to melt the villain, who pooled on the ground, his eyes swiveling around in fear. The Greenette morphed a pair of stones into bottles, pouring the sludge inside with the Space Stone. "I am late." Izuku turned wide-eyed, to All Might. "It was self-defense," he said quickly. The giant man chuckled, accepting the offered bottles from the boy. "Thank you, young man. This villain was giving me quite a lot of trouble." The hero laughed boisterously. Izuku frowned. "All Might, are you injured?" he asked. The hero flinched, his hand moving to his left side. How did you know that, young man?" he asked. Izuku summoned the gauntlet. "My quirk lets me sense a person's soul. I can tell that you're in pain. If you would like, I can heal your injury," Izuku offered. The hero shook his head sadly. "It's an old wound, already healed and scarred over. The best healing quirks couldn't help me now," he said. Izuku frowned. "How long ago did you get it?" "As specific as you can, please," he asked. The hero thought for a second. Well, I think it's been 5 years and... For months now, he said. Why? Izuku moved his hand forward. Time and space. The fabric of reality itself. The unbridled power of the cosmos. The minds and souls of the living beings within. They all bend before the Infinity Gauntlet's might. Izuku stood outside Battle Center B, unaware of the conversation happening at that very moment. All Might burst through the door of the observation room. Principal Nizu, I have incredible news, he said. Nizu turned to him. It must be serious if he hadn't even said, I am here. What is it, Yagi? You can turn back, there are no prying eyes here. All Might chuckled. I don't need to, he said. Every hero in the room turned to face the number 1 hero. What do you mean? Nizu asked curiously. All Might sat gingerly on a chair too small for him. I met a boy around 10 months ago. His name is Izuku Midoriya. He's taking today's hero course exam. He was able to heal me, All Might said. The hero's eyes widened collectively. Nizu turned sharply to the hero. That's impossible, he said. All Might shook his head. He really did. I told him it was old, scarred, and already healed, but he just smirked at me. He summoned this golden glove. The glove had 6 gems on it, all in different colors. He used the red and the green one to heal my injury. Nizu frowned, typing on his tablet. Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, tool bond. He summoned a weapon or tool of some kind at 4 years old, and it became bonded to him. He can only use that weapon or tool and can summon it whenever he chooses. A rather powerful quirk if used correctly, he surmised. That description of the glove sounds vaguely familiar. Aizawa said. All Might thought for a moment. I think he was quoting something, but he said this before he healed me. Time and space. The fabric of reality itself. The unbridled power of the cosmos. The minds and souls of the living beings within. They all bend before the Infinity Gauntlet's might. Nizu spit out his tea. He summoned the Infinity Gauntlet when he was 4 years old? Aizawa yelled in shock. Perhaps he was a fan of the old Marvel comics, and his quirk triggered by mistake while he was reading one. Young Midoriya is currently the most powerful being on the planet. No, the cosmos, Nizu speculated. Present Mike frowned. What's the Infinity Gauntlet? He asked. The rest of the staff turned to Aizawa. The hero just sighed. The Infinity Gauntlet is a weapon. No, a tool from a very old comic series. The villain is the one in possession of this gauntlet, and time, space, reality, the souls and minds of others, and the unbridled power of the cosmos bend at his whim. If Midoriya really has the Infinity Gauntlet. How did the heroes beat this villain? Midnight asked. Nizu shook his head. They didn't. The villain was defeated by his own arrogance. He believed he was unstoppable. Without Asgardian gods to aid us. Midoriya probably is unstoppable, he said. Present Mike stood up from his seat. I'd better go start the exam. Izuku summoned the gauntlet. He wasn't afraid of it being recognized. Marvel went out of business about 100 years ago. Nobody was interested in the old comic book heroes. They wanted to see the new, real-life ones. Only the older generations had a slim chance of recognizing it. There might be a teacher who knew, but it didn't matter. If they knew what it was, then they knew what it could do. Present Mike approached the testing area, on top of the wall, right above the door. Start, he screeched. Izuku warped into the testing site. He came across a robot, the reality stone glowing a deep red. The robot collapsed in on itself, becoming nothing more than tissue paper. The next robot transformed into a torrent of bubbles, while another turned to stone, and the one after that to sand. Izuku faced an army with only the might of the reality stone. About 8 minutes into the fight, a rumble shook the city. His eyes widened as he saw the massive robot bearing down on him. Was that the zero-pointer? He would need more than just the reality stone to handle this. Izuku ran forward, pushing through the crowd of examinees who were fleeing from the robot. Eventually, he broke free and spotted a girl who had been left behind by everyone else. Some heroes they were. He activated the deep purple power stone, unleashing a ray of pure energy at the zero-pointer. It halted in its tracks, just meters away from where the girl lay. And with that, the exam is over. Present Mike announced. Izuku turned around to see that everyone had already fled. But he didn't want just anyone knowing he could manipulate time. Turning back to the scene, he raised his fist and activated the light green time stone's full power. Rubble lifted off the ground, reattaching itself to the crumbled buildings. The zero-pointer was repaired but remained inactive. The pavement restored itself, and the buildings stood pristine once more. Izuku grunted in exertion, focusing on the girl's timeline. He pushed it back by 5 minutes, ensuring she would remember most of the exam but not the moment of being crushed by debris. Sighing, he let the gauntlet vanish, wiping the blood from his nose as he turned to walk away. "Good morning, Mr. Midoriya. We would like to speak to you concerning your quirk," Principal Nizu said. Izuku sighed. "I considered the fact that someone would recognize the gauntlet," he replied. "But you did not expect us to be so forward about it?" Nizu finished. Izuku nodded. "Well, you healed All Might's injury, something I had deemed impossible. You are also in possession of the greatest fictional weapon of all time. Well, not so fictional anymore at least." Izuku followed the small animal as it led him to a meeting room, where a team of medical bots took the still unconscious girl away. "How did you know I healed All Might?" he asked. "He told me himself. He is going to be teaching here, so imagine my shock when he tells me he is no longer hindered in hero work. He mentioned you used the red and green stones, reality and time, correct?" Nizu inquired. "That's right. I can focus on a specific point, and I just rewound that portion of All Might's body into its former condition," Izuku confirmed. Nizu opened the door to the meeting room, revealing several well-known heroes, including All Might. "Young Midoriya, it's good to see you again." All Might boomed. Izuku smiled at the hero. "How has your side been, All Might? Is it giving you any trouble? I've never healed an injury of that caliber before, or from so long ago," he said. The hero laughed, patting where his scar once was. "I'm in perfect condition, thank you," he replied. Seated at the table were several heroes. Present Mike, Midnight, Ectoplasm, Power Loader, Snipe, 13, Lunch Rush, Cementos, Hound Dog, Vlad King, and another hero who seemed vaguely familiar to Izuku. "Can I ask who it was that recognized my gauntlet?" Izuku inquired. They all looked to the unknown man, who was dressed in black and had long, scraggly hair. "I read the comics when I was a kid," he said. Izuku grinned. "You have excellent taste," he complimented. The man nodded, glancing down momentarily at Izuku's unloved left arm. Nizu interrupted the budding conversation with a cough. "Midoriya, would you like to sit down?" he asked. Izuku took the seat beside All Might and opposite his new friend. "Now, what can you tell us about your stupendously powerful quirk?" Nizu asked. Izuku grinned, while the scruffy man's eyes glinted with excitement. He was a fanboy just like Izuku. The greenette summoned the gauntlet, resting his arm on the table. "I can summon the gauntlet at will. I can take it off if I want, but there isn't much need to. I have all 6 of the Infinity Stones. They give me the power to control space, time, all of reality, the souls and minds of every living thing, and the Ernst energy of the cosmos as pure power," he began. Nizu's eyes gleamed, while the rest of the heroes looked shocked. Izuku pulled a pencil from his pocket, and the reality stone glowed red. He offered an apple to the scruffy guy. "Take a bite," he asked. The fanboy took the apple and bit into it, his eyes widening. "It's an actual apple," he muttered around the bite. The time stone glowed green, and the apple became whole again, the bite returning as if it had never been taken. The hero swallowed the piece he had bitten off, staring at the now whole apple. "Incredible." Nizu muttered. "I have a certain proficiency with each of the stones. Ever since I got the gauntlet last year, my body has been adapting to the power I channel through it. I can use the time, space, and reality stones at 100% proficiency individually. The power stone is incredibly potent, so I can only use 50% right now without hurting myself. The soul stone doesn't have a proficiency, it's more passive than the others, but I can use it however I think of without strain. The Mind Stone is also only at 50% because I haven't been able to train it. I need other people for that, Izuku continued. I assume you haven't tried a snap yet? Izuku's new friend asked. Izuku snorted. Of course not. What do you think I am, an idiot? I'd be insane to try and get away with a cosmic shift and scathe, he replied. Present Mike sighed dramatically. For the rest of us unnerds, please explain, Shota, he begged the shabby hero. The man sighed. The snap is the villain's goal in the Infinity Gauntlet comic. Once he gets all of the Infinity Stones, he can snap his fingers and do anything. Whatever he thinks at the moment he snaps, it happens. He wishes to wipe out half of the universe's population to impress Lady Death, who is actually in love with a human man, Wade Wilson, he explained. The merc with a mouth. Izuku and the man said simultaneously. So, if Midoriya wanted to wipe out half the population. All Might began. He could do it right now with a snap of his fingers. He isn't restricted by death, though. He could make it rain in deserts, make crops grow strong, crack the sun in two, obliterate all quirks, whatever he thinks of when he snaps his fingers, it happens, the man said. It would greatly damage my body, though, Izuku explained. I need to gain complete proficiency with all the stones individually, then in pairs, then 3s, 4s, 5s, and finally all of them together, simultaneously, Izuku explained. Nizu inquired, how long do you estimate it will take to reach that point? Izuku paused for a moment, considering. I achieved complete proficiency with half the stones in a year, and my body is getting more accustomed to them. So, I would say another year at most. All Might sighed, running his hands down his face. A year until you become a god. Izuku frowned at the notion. I don't want to be a god. I just want to be a hero. That's what confuses me. You know how in stories, villains are corrupted by power and become greedy and evil? I haven't experienced that. I'm still me, so I don't think the idea that power goes straight to your head is entirely accurate. The heroes collectively sighed in relief. Well, there's no doubt you passed the exam. I look forward to seeing you in the hero course next month. Thank you for indulging me with this meeting, Midoriya. Izuku stood up, smiling at the principal. It's no trouble, Principal Nizu. I'm happy to help. I should probably be getting home. Goodbye. With that, the space stone glowed light blue, and Izuku stepped back into the portal he created, sealing the tear in space behind him. As he opened the door to Class 1A, Izuku frowned at the shouting match within. Take your feet off the desk this instant, one voice demanded. Who are you, you extra? Another retorted. It is extremely disrespectful to the school and the people who made the desk, came the first voice again. Where'd you get that stick up your back for eyes? The second voice shot back. Izuku summoned the Infinity Gauntlet, and the Reality Stone glowed deep crimson. Bakugo and the rude boy from the exam struggled to speak, and Bakugo's feet were no longer on the desk. It's the first day, stop getting at each other's throats for goodness sake. Izuku said, finally earning their attention. The spectacled boy marched over, swinging his arms. He frowned at the glowing stone, trying to speak. Midoriya, put reality back the way it's meant to be. Good morning, class. My name is Shota Aizawa. I'll be your homeroom teacher for the next 3 years. Izuku turned to Aizawa, whispering, it's my best friend. He released Bakugo and the rude boy from the gauntlet's hold. Aizawa snorted, tossing a pile of P uniforms onto his desk. Everyone put those on and head outside. We're taking a quirk evaluation test. Izuku grabbed a uniform and stepped backward into a portal, the space stone glowing blue. It's just as cool as the first time, Aizawa thought. Izuku was, of course, the first to reach the field outside. Aizawa arrived a minute later and struck up a conversation. What have you worked on in the past month? I got the power stone to 60%. The mind stone is still untouched. Pairing the space and reality stones was easier than expected. I tried adding time, but it started to hurt. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. How accurate to the comics is the gauntlet? Izuku grinned. See, that's the thing. I was only 4, so I didn't understand the boundaries that held Thanos back from conquering time and space. So the gauntlet is how I imagined it at 4 years old. Is it even more powerful than in the comics? Aizawa asked in disbelief. Izuku nodded. I don't have a limit to the things I can do. It's going to reach a point where I don't even need to snap to alter big cosmic stuff. Just the reality stone on its own, if I train hard enough. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. This is ridiculous. You have the Infinity Gauntlet. But it's not just the Infinity Gauntlet. You have a ridiculously enhanced version from your 4-year-old imagination. That's not even the best part, Izuku said, clenching his fist and letting the reality stone glow. Reality can be whatever I want. Aizawa grinned. You can unironically use every Thanos quote there is. Seems this year isn't going to be as bad as I thought. The rest of Class 1A quickly walked onto the field, and Aizawa began the Quirk test. Midoriya, throw this ball as far as you can. Izuku summoned the Infinity Gauntlet and activated the Power Stone, launching the ball out of the atmosphere. Aizawa waited a few seconds before raising his tablet. Infinity. You will be using your powers to achieve exceptional scores. Now let's get to it. Aizawa was surprised that nobody had commented on how fun the test was going to be, getting to use their quirks as much as they wanted. Perhaps they were stunned by Midoriya's display. Speaking of Midoriya, he had just come in first overall in the 50-meter dash. He was obviously using time dilation or perhaps stopping it altogether. For the long jump, Izuku used time dilation again. During the endurance run, he used the space and reality stones to shorten his laps. He activated the power stone to crush the grip meter on the strength test. Izuku had used the Infinity Gauntlet to achieve first place in every single test, amazing the rest of the students. Dude, that glove is super cool. And it glows when you use an ability. Is it some kind of support item? A red-haired boy asked. Izuku held up the gauntlet. Thanks. It's not a support item, my quirk lets me summon it. Gives me control over a few things, he said vaguely. You used super speed during the 50-meter dash and the long jump, and super strength on the grip test, the electric boy noted. Izuku shook his head. It wasn't super speed or super strength. It just seemed like I was fast and strong to you. Aizawa saw an opportunity. I'm giving you all your first assignment. If you can figure out what Midoriya's quirk can do, you get no homework for a week. If you don't even come close, you get double homework. Almost getting it right earns you average homework. I want an analysis or a compilation of notes or something from all of you on my desk by Friday. Midoriya, no hinting. A few students groaned, but the recommendation student Yaoyorozu looked excited. Analysis, buddy? Your first heroics lesson is tomorrow, and your second is on Thursday. Those will be ample opportunities to study his power, should he reveal it. You can also request videos of both the entrance exam and today's test. You must each work individually. That means no working together, Kaminari, Ashido. That will be all, you're dismissed. Izuku opened a portal, and he and Aizawa stepped backwards into it as it snapped shut, sealing the rift in space. Yaoyorozu was already scribbling in a notebook labeled Midoriya's Quirk Assessment Notes. She noted various abilities associated with different colored gems, something that creates the illusion of super speed associated with a green glow, something that creates the illusion of super strength associated with a purple glow. Powerful telekinetic force also linked to the purple glow, portal creation associated with a blue glow, and manipulation of matter, with the ability to change people's biology painlessly, which Mr. Aizawa had described as Midoriya, put reality back the way it's meant to be, suggesting manipulation of reality itself associated with a red glow. The yellow and orange gems remained unused so far. Izuku's quirk consisted of summoning an intricate golden gauntlet with 6 colorful gems housed at the joints of his fingers and the center of the back of his hand. The gauntlet was summoned on his left hand, leaving his dominant hand free to use. When a certain ability was activated, the corresponding gemstone glowed. The next day, several of his classmates questioned Izuku, eager to see what his quirk could do. You'll see what I can do in today's heroics class, and then again on Thursday, he told Kaminari as he took his seat. Many of his classmates were deep in thought about his quirk, particularly Yaoyorozu, who was going over various theories in her mind. Izuku was impressed by how much she had noticed, deduced, and theorized. Nobody had noticed his gentle poking and prodding, nor the glow of the orange mind stone on the Infinity Gauntlet. The orange glow caught Yaoyorozu's eye, and she immediately pulled out a small notebook to jot down her thoughts. Passive ability for the orange gemstone? Non-physical ability? Senses enhancer of some kind? IQ increase, she speculated. While her theories were good, they were incorrect. Izuku let the gauntlet vanish, and the inner voices of his classmates faded away along with the mind stone. Everyone's attention shifted to the door as it swung open. "I am here. Coming through the door like a hero," All Might announced. "It's All Might. He really is a teacher here," one student exclaimed. "Isn't that his Silver Age costume?" Another added. The number 1 hero marched to the front of the room. "Good morning. I will be your heroics teacher this year. Today we will be doing battle training. For that you're going to need these." All Might pressed a button, and the left wall opened up, revealing 20 costume cases. "Grab your case, get changed, and head to Ground Beta. We will be conducting your training there," All Might exclaimed before bursting through the door. Izuku warped himself and his costume to Ground Beta, leaving his costume case and school uniform in the changing room. His costume consisted of a pair of black jeans and a dark green hoodie, with the Infinity Gauntlet on his left arm. The lesson was straightforward. A villain team of 2 would guard a bomb while a hero duo needed to infiltrate the hideout and either capture the villains or secure the bomb before time ran out. The villains needed to prevent that at all costs. Izuku was teamed up with Yaoyorozu. "It's good to be working with you," he said politely. "You as well, Midoriya," she replied. They were paired against Bakugo and Iida as the heroes, while Izuku and Yaoyorozu would play the villains. "You get 10 minutes to prepare, villains," All Might instructed. The duo nodded and headed into their hideout. "Do you have a plan, Midoriya?" Yaoyorozu asked. Izuku nodded. "I can use my quirk to disorient our opponents. If you create some traps throughout the building, I can guide them into them," he explained. "I thought the same thing," she agreed. 7 minutes later, they were in the bomb room, waiting. "Hero teams start," All Might announced. Izuku smiled. "Let's begin." The Reality Stone and the Mind Stone glowed. Bakugo and Iida entered the building, but the floor plan they had been given did not match the layout of the building they were navigating. Every 20 seconds or so, they encountered a glue gun, a weighted carbon fiber net, or some other inconvenient obstacle. Bakugo's fuse was getting shorter and shorter until they finally found it. The bomb stood in a large room against the far wall, while Izuku and Yaoyorozu waited at about the halfway point. Bakugo blasted off immediately toward Izuku. "Where'd you get that flashy quirk, Deku Wielded?" he yelled. Izuku made the Reality Stone flash red. In an instant, Izuku, Yaoyorozu, and the bomb vanished in a red glow. Iida and Bakugo looked around frantically, only to find themselves back at the doorway, with the bomb through the door and Izuku and Yaoyorozu standing battle-ready on either side. "Come on, Bakugo, is that the best you've got?" "It's pretty pathetic if you ask me," Izuku taunted. Iida tried to stop Bakugo, but he charged at Izuku in a blind rage. The duo vanished in a red flash once again. Bakugo spun around wildly. The back wall, where the bomb had originally rested, disintegrated, revealing Izuku standing behind it, the Reality Stone glowing. "Reality is often disappointing," he remarked. Yaoyorozu furiously scribbled in her notebook. "Time is up, heroes. The villain team wins," All Might announced. Bakugo stood dumbstruck, while Iida applauded their opponents. "Very well done, Midoriya and Yaoyorozu. The traps were ingenious, and distracting us with illusions was excellently executed. May I ask how you remodeled the building's layout?" he inquired. Izuku smiled. "I'll explain back in the observation room." "Here, go through," he said, opening a light blue portal through which Yaoyorozu and Iida stepped. Izuku looked toward Bakugo and sighed, sweeping his left arm to fire the open portal at him. The greenette then stepped through the opening in space. "Well done, villain team. Now, who was the MVP of this match?" All Might asked. Kirishima raised his hand. Don't really know what happened, sir. It was really confusing, he admitted. All Might nodded understandingly. I too am befuddled by young Midoriya's quirk. Would you like to explain what you did? He asked Izuku. Izuku nodded, raising the gauntlet. Bakugo and Iida only thought the building's layout had changed. I actually just used illusions to block off the corridors not filled with traps. As for the final room, I used another set of illusions. I placed a wall between the bomb and the hero team. I created 2 more illusions that made the heroes think we were in different places. Once the time was up, I revealed the trick, he explained. That's the red gemstone, correct? Yaoyorozu asked. Izuku nodded, creating an illusory version of himself standing next to him. The illusion was only visible to the hero's eyes, which lessened the strain on me, if any. I was prepared for a number of situations, including Bakugo trying to blast through a wall. Izuku. Yaoyorozu began scribbling furiously again. What did you use the orange gemstone for? It glowed alongside the red one at the start, she asked. Izuku vanished. It was just a little extra insurance. Illusions can be seen through if you're smart enough and know how. I didn't want to take the chance, so I lowered their perception. That's also how they fell for every single trap, he explained. I think it's safe to say that young Midoriya is the MVP of the MASH. Young Yaoyorozu's quirk and ingenuity were imperative to the plan. However, young Midoriya was the one to come up with the initial plan and execute it brilliantly. Any objections? The concept of reality was mentioned again. Reality is often disappointing. It changes a person's perception of reality and alters reality itself. The red gemstone works well in conjunction with the orange gemstone, creating illusions and making the target less likely to question them. The orange gemstone changes a person's mental faculties, making them less perceptive and easier to trick. The portals from the blue gemstone can be moved at Midoriya's will. Bakugo was deposited in the observation room after the portals swept along. Izuku smirked, impressed. Yaoyorozu was doing well. Most of his other classmates thought it was just illusions or that it wasn't his quirk at all, just a decoy that hid his real quirk. Todoroki's mind was disturbing. Who was Mirio, and how was he All Might's secret love child? Wednesday had passed without incident. Izuku had stopped reading his classmates' minds, especially Yaoyorozu's, as he wanted to be pleasantly surprised by her analysis. Aizawa was assisting All Might in today's heroics lesson. You have all used your quirks in combat and discovered their potential. Now, however, you must learn how to fight without your quirks. Mr. Aizawa will be aiding me in this lesson, as he is an expert quirkless combatant, All Might said. Aizawa stepped forward. You will all spend this lesson quirkless. Anyone with a mutant type will not be affected, as their quirks cannot be erased. Midoriya, you can give them back afterward, right? Izuku let out a sharp laugh. I should have seen this coming. It might take a minute, I haven't done this before. Izuku closed his eyes, curling the gauntlet into a fist and raising it to his face. Reality, mind, soul, and time. The stones glowed brightly from the gauntlet. Izuku opened his eyes, releasing his held breath. Well, my brain didn't implode, so that's a plus, he muttered. He looked across at Yaoyorozu, who was scribbling in her notebook again. Can you use your quirk? He asked her. She just shook her head, still writing. Can anyone else use their quirks? He asked. Class 1A shook their heads. Bakugo looked furious, while Todoroki seemed relieved. Izuku tugged the Infinity Gauntlet off, surprising the rest of the class. He then handed the universe-destroying artifact to Aizawa, who looked like every Christmas had come at once. I'm quirkless now too, he said. Aizawa reluctantly gave the gauntlet to All Might. I'm going to be teaching you all some basic hand-to-hand. Does anyone have experience with that? He asked. Izuku, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, Kirishima, Shoji, Ojiro, and Bakugo raised their hands. All right, you 7 will help me teach the others. Once everyone has the basics down, we can start sparring. Class 1A got to work. All Might held the Infinity Gauntlet gingerly, as one would hold a bomb. Young Midoriya holds more power in his pinky finger than the world has collectively, yet he aims to become a hero. He uses his powers for others and never misuses his literal godhood. Maybe he is the one? One for all boosts a person's quirk. How would young Midoriya's improve? Aizawa walked into homeroom the next day to find a stack of papers on his desk. Ah, excellent. Midoriya, could you collect these? You'll be marking them. Izuku grinned excitedly, the space stone glowing blue as the papers warped to his desk. They were stacked in the order of Izuku's interest. Yaoyorozu's was at the bottom, while Kaminari's was at the top. Midoriya will give them back to you at some point. You can share what grade you got, but don't give each other information on his quirk. It'll just take away his anonymity advantage in the sports festival. Izuku glanced at the top papers. Kaminari had said omnikinesis. It was a surprisingly good guess, but not quite correct. Several people had said something along the lines of omnikinesis or matter manipulation. Tokoyami had said he manipulated the dark matter of the void to do his bidding. Bakugo had actually done a good analysis but missed quite a lot of details. Todoroki had come pretty close but believed the gauntlet was a diversion from his true quirk, God. Then his analysis had gone all sorts of places. It was more of a conspiracy theory, really. The greenette marked and returned the papers one by one until he finally reached Yaoyorozu's analysis. I got a B. Kaminari cheered. Me too. Mina said. How did I get a C? Todoroki just sat with his eyes narrowed. He's trying to hide his godhood. Izuku let the mind stone go, rolling his eyes. He turned his attention to the one thing he'd been looking forward to all week. Midoriya's quirk is incredibly complex. It can be compared to powerful quirks such as omnikinesis. However, that is not the case. The most likely answer is that Midoriya has a weapon summoning quirk, and the gauntlet he wears is the weapon of choice. My reasoning is that the gauntlet appears and disappears without the usual red flash from the reality gemstone when he manipulates an object. The gauntlet itself has 6 gemstones, each representing a plane of Midoriya's control. As far as I can discern, the red gemstone represents his control over reality. The blue gemstone represents his control over space, and the orange gemstone represents his control over people's minds. Using this, I have deduced the green gemstone represents his control over time. At the entrance exam, Midoriya reversed a building state, as well as Uraraka's leg. The purple gemstone was tricky, however, I believe it to be a general power-up type gemstone. Midoriya has telekinesis and super strength when using this gemstone. He can also fire a purple beam of energy at his opponents, as demonstrated in his fight with the zero-pointer robot. The final gemstone is unknown. The yellow one in the back of his hand was only used once when he removed the class's quirks for a quirkless combat training session. It was used in conjunction with the reality, time, and mind gemstones, so it is impossible to discern its true, individual function. My best guess is that it has something to do with manipulating people. Physically or mentally, Izuku wasn't sure. However, he believed that these were all just functions of the weapon Midoriya could summon, and his true quirk simply allowed him to summon the gauntlet. Izuku burst out laughing, turning to the black-haired girl, who looked vaguely worried. Was my analysis all right? I just thought that, she began. This is amazing, Yaoyorozu. I knew you'd get close, but I didn't think you'd get it completely correct, he exclaimed, leaving the rest of the class in shock. I was right? She asked, her eyes wide. Izuku nodded. Yup. Gauntlet functions and all. Well done catching the absence of the reality stone's glow when I summon it. Even I hadn't noticed that, but that's probably because I know the truth. Anyway, I'd give you an S grade if I could, but it doesn't exist. He handed the paper back to the stunned girl. So you really aren't God here to judge us for our sins? Todoroki asked. Izuku sighed. No, Todoroki, I am not God. You were pretty close until you began the conspiracy theory halfway through. Todoroki smacked his table, crossing out a line in his notebook labeled, Theories. Yaoyorozu read the message Izuku had written at the bottom of her page. 110 well done. Smiley face. It's called the Infinity Gauntlet, and the final Infinity Stone is called the Soul Stone. Midoriya, Todoroki said, interrupting Izuku's thoughts. Izuku looked up from his desk, finding Todoroki there. "What's up, Todoroki?" he asked. The teenager seemed nervous, afraid, expectant, and hopeful. Hope was the one emotion shining through the most. "You can mess with quirks, right?" he asked. Izuku nodded slowly. Todoroki's hope flared up. "Then, can you remove the fire side of my quirk?" he asked. Izuku frowned. "Could, but there are a lot of things to consider. You could only have ice on your right and be powerless from the left. Why do you want me to remove it?" Todoroki considered his words, looking around. They were alone in Class 1A. "Have you ever heard of quirk marriages?" The Infinity Stones flared in response to Izuku's anger. "I'm going to kill that person," he said quietly, his eyes vacant. Izuku snapped back to reality. "I completely understand why you want me to remove your fire. However," the soul, mind, time, and reality stones glowed softly. "It's not your father's quirk at all," he said. Todoroki frowned. "But, Midoriya," Izuku interrupted, a satisfied grin on his face. "No, I mean it's literally not your father's quirk gene. Your ice is your mother's, but your fire is your grandfather's. If anything, it's even more powerful than Endeavor's. The Hellstorm gene was dampened in Endeavor by your grandmother's plant-growing quirk. Your fire is from your grandfather's Hellstorm, not Endeavor's Hellflame." Todoroki's temperature was fluctuating. "So the flames that have hurt so many people," he whispered, "are not yours. Endeavor is someone who likes to hurt people. He tarnished your grandfather's flame by using it to hurt others. You can use his fire for good. Rather than burning a villain, you can use your fire to warm up a freezing child," Izuku said gently. The crying boy just nodded. "It's your power, Todoroki. Yours, not his. You can use it how you see fit." He smiled. The once icy teen smiled gratefully back. Class 1A was going on a trip today to do rescue training. They had chosen a class president the other day, and Izuku had received the most votes, with Yaoyorozu in second. The heroes in training were currently crammed into a bus, driving to a special facility owned by UA. Izuku was squashed between Yaoyorozu and Azui. "Midoriya," Azui said. Izuku turned to the frog girl. "I normally say what's on my mind," she started. Izuku nodded. "My quirk is quite strange, but it makes sense if you know exactly what it really is," he said. The Mind Stone was glowing light orange. Yaoyorozu was scribbling in her notebook again, while Azui just looked confused. "How did you know what I was going to say?" Azui asked. "I can read minds," Izuku said simply. He turned to his vice representative, ignoring the chattering that had broken out among the class. "What are you writing now?" he asked. Yaoyorozu looked up. "I'm keeping track of all of your abilities and which Infinity Stone they originate from." Izuku nodded in understanding. "Can others wield the gauntlet if they put it on?" she asked. Izuku frowned. "I'm not sure. We could test that when we get back to school," he said. "Are you able to remove the stones from the gauntlet?" she asked. Izuku reached out and plucked the Mind Stone from the gauntlet. "Yes, I can." He thought for a moment. "Yaoyorozu, hold your hand out. I want to try the first question." The onyx-haired girl held her left hand out. "Think of it like a radio. There's going to be a lot of static, white noise, and gibberish. You need to tune it to a single frequency or channel," he said. The girl nodded, and Izuku placed the orange stone into her hand. Her eyes widened, but she didn't make any noise. Aizawa watched with interest. "Yaoyorozu, can you hear me?" Izuku asked. "Of course I can hear you, Midoriya. I don't think the stone is working properly though," she replied, looking up from the Mind Stone to find everyone's mouths agape. Izuku was grinning. "Are you sure?" "Seems like it's working pretty well, Momo," he said. Yaoyorozu stared at Izuku, wide-eyed. "I can hear your thoughts," she said excitedly. Izuku started cackling in his own head, so she switched channels. "I wonder if I could use one of the stones," she thought. Mr. Aizawa seemed overly excited. "That's so cool. I wonder if Midoriya will let me try one of his gems," he thought. Kirishima sounded excited too, but not to the same level as Mr. Aizawa. "She can read people's thoughts? I wonder how it works. What if someone is thinking about something really embarrassing? Can you feel it when she's listening in?" Wait, she's been staring at me for a while now. Yaoyorozu, are you reading my mind? He thought. Todoroki was full of questions. Yaoyorozu just nodded at him. Interesting. Maybe this is how Midoriya knew about that. Please stop now, Yaoyorozu, I'm thinking about personal matters, he thought, sounding much more cheerful inside his own head. Izuku reached out and plucked the stone from her hand. Don't want you learning any deep dark secrets from anybody, he said, placing the mind stone back in its indent. Izuku sighed. When the familiar chatter faded into the back of his mind, the bus slowed to a stop, and Izuku led his classmates out. Aizawa walked up to the pro hero 13. Where's All Might? He asked quietly. He got held up by a robbery, she replied. Aizawa sighed and turned back to the class. We'll be shown around by 13 today. All Might will turn up later. He's busy with hero work at the moment, he said. 13 greeted the class. Good morning, everyone. I'm the pro hero 13, welcome to the USJ, she announced. The heroes led the class inside and stopped at the top of the stairs. Wow, it really is like Universal Studios Japan, Kaminari exclaimed. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, my quirk, Black Hole, is useful for rescue operations. However, it can very easily harm others. I'm sure some of you have quirks like that, she explained. A few students nodded in agreement. I will be teaching you how to use your powers to save others. Rather than hurting, you will be using your quirks to heal. The students applauded the heroine, but something caught Izuku's attention. Aizawa, someone's tearing a hole in space down there. I can feel it, he said. Aizawa frowned and turned to the center courtyard. 13, get the students out of here. Midoriya, you have permission to use your quirk to save others, he instructed. A purple mist began swirling next to the fountain. Go quickly, Aizawa urged as he jumped down the staircase. 13 ushered the students towards the entrance, but they were stopped just meters from the door by a misty villain who stepped out of a portal. Good morning, we are the League of Villains. We have come to ensure that All Might, the symbol of peace, takes his last breath. Do you know where he is? He was on the schedule, the villain said. Bakugo and Kirishima jumped at the villain, getting in 13's and Izuku's way. Ah, I forgot, you are still UA Hero Corps students. My job is to scatter you and torture you all, he declared, the mist surging forward. Izuku couldn't cancel it out with the reality stone for fear of closing a portal with one of his classmates halfway through it. He was swallowed by a portal and fell out of the purple mist towards a rocky mountainside. Using the space stone, he landed safely on the mountainside. Looks like the mountain zone, he muttered. There was a shriek from above, and Yaoyorozu and Gyre fell from a pair of misty portals. The space stone glowed blue, and the girls were safely deposited on the mountainside. Thank you, Midoriya, Yaoyorozu said sheepishly. It's all right. We should get back to the entrance. Aizawa isn't going to last long against the villain horde, he replied. There are students over here, someone yelled. Izuku turned around and faced a group of about 30 villains, all with earth manipulation or electricity-type quirks. Izuku smirked and activated the power stone. Stay behind me, he instructed. The greenette walked forward, a menacing purple aura surrounding the Infinity Gauntlet. What, he thinks he can take us all on by himself? One villain scoffed. Izuku raised his fist wordlessly and slammed the Infinity Gauntlet into the ground. A purple shockwave tore the rock apart and threw the villains off the mountainside. Yes, I can, Izuku declared. He turned back to his classmates. The others must have been sent to the other disaster zones. I'll send you both back to the entrance and then go look for the others, he said. Yaoyorozu frowned. Midoriya. I'm the class rep. I'm ordering you both to retreat. Yaoyorozu here, Izuku said, taking the reality stone from the gauntlet. Use this to defend yourselves. It can cancel the warp villain's portals if he's still there. He also handed the time stone to Gyro. Use the stones together to efficiently heal injuries. The villains have most definitely injured some of our classmates, and 13 could have been stopped by the warp villain, he explained, opening a blue portal. Yaoyorozu and Gyro nodded, their fists glowing red and green as they walked through the portal. Izuku warped himself to the next disaster zone. Izuku stepped through the blue portal after Todoroki and Hagakure. The rest of Class 1A were near the doorway, having their wounds tended to by Yaoyorozu and Jiraiya. Tokoyami had a nasty gash on his arm, and Ojiro's tail had cuts all along it. Izuku closed the portal, sighing in relief. "Is everybody okay?" he asked. Yaoyorozu looked up from where she was healing Tokoyami's arm alongside Jiraiya. "There are some serious injuries, but nothing too threatening thanks to the stones. 13 will be okay, she's just unconscious." Suddenly, a scream of pain echoed from the courtyard below. Izuku turned around. Aizawa was being crushed under a hulking monster's foot. His arms were bent the wrong way and he was in bad shape. Izuku tore the space stone from its housing in the gauntlet and opened a portal. "Siro's space stone. Get everybody out of here. Once the monster is off Aizawa, portal him out of there," he yelled. Izuku tossed the glowing blue stone to Siro, who nodded determinedly. The green net leapt through the portal, charging the power stone's energy through his arm. Izuku roared and slammed the Infinity Gauntlet into the beast's stomach. It was sent skidding back a few meters, but that was all. Aizawa's battered form disappeared into a light blue portal, much to the annoyance of the villain. "Who the hell are you? How did you manage to move Nomu like that?" he demanded. "Please calm yourself, Shigaraki Tamura," the mist man said. "Silence, Kurojiri. You're on very thin ice already, allowing that student to escape." Shigaraki hissed. Izuku moved to attack Shigaraki, but the villain spoke up first. "Nomu, kill this brat," he commanded. Nomu turned its head towards Izuku and charged at unimaginable speeds. The green net raised the Infinity Gauntlet and reached out for the villain's mind, trying to snap it in two. All he found was a single command labeled, "Kill this brat." Izuku snapped it anyway, forcing Nomu to stop in its tracks. That thing's not human anymore, but it took the power stone at 60% without injury. "I can't beat this thing without the other stones. Nomu, kill him!" Shigaraki screeched. Izuku reached out again and snapped the order in two. He slammed his fist into Nomu again, launching it back with the power stone. "How do you keep doing that? Nomu, kill him. Keep trying to kill him until he's dead," Shigaraki ordered. Izuku slammed his fist into Nomu. That was a stronger, more cemented order. He needed physical contact to cut this command rather than just snapping the usual string. Nomu was sent back a few meters but remained uninjured. "When are the heroes getting here? I can't hold out much longer. If Shigaraki gives any stronger orders, I won't be able to break them. I haven't trained with the Mind Stone." The doors to the USJ blew open, revealing All Might standing there. "Fear not, young Midoriya. I am here," he announced. "It's about time, slowpoke," Izuku yelled back. The hero laughed and dashed down the stairs, swiftly taking out the villains who were beginning to recover. Izuku ran towards the stairs, moving away from the ongoing fight. Izuku grabbed the power stone from the Infinity Gauntlet. "All Might, you should be able to handle the full power of the strongest stone. Take it and punch that thing with all you've got," he shouted, tossing the power stone to the hero. All Might caught it in his right hand, forming a fist. He grunted as purple energy crackled and discharged around him. His fist glowed a deep purple, but he stood firm. "Thank you, young Midoriya. I'll take it from here." Izuku turned back to the stairs and sprinted up. He had only the Mind Stone and the Soul Stone left. They were the weakest and least trained of the 6 Infinity Stones, so Izuku didn't want to linger. Huge shockwaves filled with purple energy blasted the villains away from the main fight. All Might slammed his fists into the immovable beast, his purple right hand inflicting significantly more damage than his left. "Full power, huh, young Midoriya? I'm the symbol of peace. I can't be outdone by a shiny stone. I'll just have to give it everything too," he declared. All Might's fists became faster and faster, his strikes hitting harder with every blow. His right arm was smoking, and purple electricity arced between his fist and the Nomu. "Have you ever heard these words, villains? My students have certainly embodied them today. Go beyond, plus ultra," All Might proclaimed. The hero hurled the Nomu into the air and leaped up, slamming it into the ground. All Might landed beside it and pulled his right fist back. The Power Stone flared up brighter than ever. "Cosmic Smash!" he bellowed, unleashing the combined might of One for All and the Power Stone into the Nomu's torso. The creature remained still. It didn't wobble, didn't get thrown back, and didn't flinch. After a few seconds, the Nomu simply crumpled to the ground. Izuku stepped out of the USJ and approached his classmates. "Midoriya, you're all right?" Yaoyorozu said, visibly relieved. Izuku nodded. "I held them off until All Might arrived, then I gave him the Power Stone. He should finish up pretty quickly, even with that thing's shock absorption," he explained. Yaoyorozu, Jairu, and Siro handed Izuku back the stones he'd given them. Thank you. I was in a bit of a pickle without the Reality Stone. I'm not skilled enough with the Power Stone to use it safely," he admitted. "I tried holding them all at once, just to keep them together, but it started to hurt my hands," Yaoyorozu said. Izuku nodded. "Yeah, that'll happen. The Power Stone can literally disintegrate you if you're not strong enough to wield it. All Might should be fine though, he's the #1 hero. I don't get burned by the stones because I'm protected by the gauntlet. It lets my body adjust to their power, so I can wield several at once. With practice, you might be able to do that too," he explained. "Cosmic Smash!" All Might's voice echoed from within the USA. A few minutes later, the rest of the heroes arrived. "Is everybody all right?" Nizu asked. "Thanks to Midoriya, everyone made it out alive. He gave us some of his Infinity Stones to heal any injuries and transport everyone outside," Yaoyorozu reported. Nizu sighed in relief. "That's a relief. I assume All Might is inside." Izuku nodded. "I had to give him the Power Stone. The creature they had, Nomu, was powerful. I think All Might won though," he said. All Might walked through the open door of the UAK. "There are many villains inside. I secured them all in the central plaza, including the ones from the other zones. The Nomu creature is unconscious, I believe. Young Midoriya, thank you for saving your classmates and lending me the Power Stone. The battle would have been difficult without it," All Might said, returning the purple stone to its owner. Izuku frowned at All Might's slightly burnt arm, activating the Time and Reality Stones. A month after the USJ incident, Class 1A stood before a vast crowd. The UA Sports Festival was about to begin. Midnight was presenting, much to the delight of many. "Can the first-year representative, Izuku Midoriya, come up to the stage?" she asked. Izuku stepped out of the Class 1A line, climbed the steps, and joined the heroine on stage. He accepted the microphone from her and cleared his throat. "I'm not very good at speeches, so I'll just say do your best. If you're aiming for the hero course, good luck. If you're showcasing an invention, give it your all. If you're just here to have fun, enjoy yourselves. I want everyone to go plus ultra, alright," he encouraged the crowd of first years. Izuku left the stage to a wave of applause. "Thank you, Midoriya. Now, the first event today is going to be..." A roulette wheel spun on the screen behind Midnight. It slowed to a stop and landed on an obstacle course. An obstacle course. This event is a free-for-all. You will run out of the tunnel behind you and to the left, navigating the course around the stadium. The finish line is in the same place as the starting line. Midnight explained. The speaker system crackled to life, and Present Mike began his announcements. "Alright everybody. Follow the route the course leads and no cutting corners. Also, this year's sports festival will have a few extra rules due to a certain first year's representative. Izuku Midoriya, you've been banned from using 3 of your gems. Space and power are a no-go, you get to choose the third," he yelled. Izuku thought it over for a moment before approaching Midnight. "He has decided on mind," she announced. Izuku removed the space, power, and mind stones from their housing, using the reality stone to conceal them. Present Mike spoke up again. "You will also have a 5-minute waiting time to give the others a chance. Do you object, kid?" he asked. Izuku shook his head, grinning. A few heroes complained about the fairness of restricting one of the students not once but twice. Aizawa elbowed Mike away from the microphone. "Izuku Midoriya is the most powerful person in the stadium, even with half his stones. Even if he only had one, He could probably take on everyone here at the same time. Don't underestimate him. We certainly are by only taking half his power away. It's illogical that he gets to use 3, he stated. Midnight called the start of the race. This was a double-edged sword. Taking 3 of the stones decreased the strain on Izuku, giving him more control over the 3 he had. The 5-minute waiting time provided him with the first 1 or 2 obstacles and time to prepare for them: reality, time, and soul. An interesting combination. Just before the race began, Momo approached the Class 1B group with a few members of 1A. "Kendo," she called out. The orange-haired girl turned to Momo. "What is it, Yaoyorozu?" she asked. "I understand that Class B intends to stick together. It won't work in the long run," Momo explained. Minoma stepped forward arrogantly, a sneer on his face. "Oh, and why is that?" he challenged. Momo pointed over at Izuku. "Because even with just one of those gemstones, he could cleave the planet in 2. We don't stand a chance if he makes it to the final tournament." Minoma looked a little pale. "Well, if I copy his quirk," he began. "It wouldn't work. His quirk lets him create and summon a single weapon. He only got the finished gauntlet when he was 13. We don't have 9 years to waste away," Momo replied. Kendo sighed. "All right, we're in. What do we need to do?" Izuku was left in the stadium, his 5 minutes almost up. Todoroki had only just made it to the second obstacle, the fall, with Bakugo close behind. The speaker system crackled on. "Midoriya, go!" Present Mike yelled. Izuku broke into a sprint, using the time stone to slow everything and everyone else down to a crawl. He passed the Robo Inferno and was halfway towards the fall when he felt a tug to the left. That was a very large magnet. Time returned to normal, and the Infinity Gauntlet yanked Izuku into the large magnet. Yaoyorozu stepped out from behind it. "Reality, time, and soul. I know your abilities almost as well as you. I'm the perfect counter to the Infinity Gauntlet," she declared. Izuku grinned. "Yes, you do know my abilities quite well. Or at least, the few I've shown you." Izuku turned the magnet to stone using reality and brought the gauntlet around to Yaoyorozu, activating the time stone. He's been restricted with how many stones he can use. As far as I can tell, he's only got reality, time, and soul. The first 2 are his most powerful, and he hasn't used the soul stone very often, Momo began. Kendo and Class 1B were running alongside the members of 1A who were in on the plan: Yaoyorozu, Jiro, Siro, Azui, and Kirishima. All the people who had wielded an Infinity Stone's power, and 2 people who had thought it through. "So, what can he do with these stones?" Kendo asked. Yaoyorozu smashed a robot with her baseball bat. "Anything. The time stone lets him control time at will. The reality stone lets him bend reality to his will. The soul stone lets him sense and touch people's souls, their very being." Class 1B now realized that their original plan would not have worked. "I assume you have a plan?" Kendo asked. Momo smiled. "I do. We need to push him into a corner. I can set something up with magnets. He'll try to use the time stone first. Reality would take me out instantly, as would soul. He's too kind for that, so time will be his first move. I'll leave that to you, Jiro." As the familiar green glow enveloped Yaoyorozu, Jiro came falling down from the sky, Azui's tongue around her middle. The purple-haired girl grabbed onto the gauntlet and reached out to pluck out the time stone. Izuku blew her away with the soul stone. Getting gut-punched was bad enough, but with the soul stone active, it became a cosmic gut punch. Both body and soul were affected, taking the person out instantly if they were weak-willed. Class 1A and anyone at UA were anything but weak-willed. Izuku caught the time stone that Jiro had dropped. Small Yaoyorozu leapt forward and grabbed onto the gauntlet, reaching for the reality stone. "It must be because you've wielded them before. The stones recognize you as their wielders too, so you can remove them," he muttered. Yaoyorozu grinned. "We've got you now, Midoriya," she squeaked. Izuku grabbed the back of her uniform and lifted the little girl up. "What was that, Yaoyorozu?" he asked with a grin. The girl frowned adorably, kicking her little child legs. "I underestimated how quickly you'd react. I thought Jiro would get it before you de-age me. I also didn't anticipate how quickly you'd react to her. Todoroki has reached the final obstacle, the minefield. And it looks like Class 1A and 1B's plan is falling apart. Yaoyorozu's been turned into a toddler. How'd the P uniform shrink though? Present Mike yelled. Izuku sighed. I don't have time to turn you back right now. It's harder to get you back to the right age than it is to just make you younger. Sorry, that's my bad. I'll just take you with me. Yaoyorozu tried to protest, but Izuku held the small girl in his right arm and activated the time stone, breaking into a sprint. He went past Class 1B's version of Yaoyorozu's trap a few minutes later. He ran along the rope spanning the fall and made it to the minefield. This is amazing, everyone's in slow motion. Yaoyorozu exclaimed. Izuku grinned. I can stop time completely, but this way it looks like super speed. Hey, the minefield. Izuku stepped onto one of the mines to test it. It exploded in slow motion, taking several seconds to even emit the pink gas cloud. So, can you manipulate objects while like this? Yaoyorozu asked. Izuku nodded, running over the mines. Yeah. It's a little tiring, but I can still do stuff like this. Izuku picked up a rock and turned it into a marker pen. He handed it to Yaoyorozu and froze time as he reached Bakugo and Todoroki. Be nice to Shoto, he's trying to be less cold. Go wild on Bakugo though, he totally deserves it. Yaoyorozu giggled at how unladylike what she was doing was. She drew a mustache and monocle onto Bakugo's face, then added angrier eyebrows than his own. Izuku took a picture on his phone and turned the pen back into a rock, placing it right underneath Bakugo's foot. Izuku resumed the slowed-down sprint and reached the finish line in no time. He released the time stone's power once he entered the tunnel. Once he and Yaoyorozu emerged, the crowd burst into cheers. Limited by half his power, a 5-minute penalty PRD and an ambush by the hero courses, Izuku had still come out on top by a significant margin. Yaoyorozu wiggled in his arm and jumped onto the sandy floor. She then looked expectantly up at Izuku. The greenette took a step back and extended his left hand, the time and reality stones glowing green and red. Yaoyorozu grew until she became her normal height again, sighing in relief. She expressed her gratitude, stating, "Thank you, Midoriya. As fun as that was, I believe I'd be at a disadvantage in the next events." Izuku grinned and suggested, "Maybe we should have a training event where everyone's a toddler. Not because it'll be funny, but in case they come across a quirk like that." Yaoyorozu nodded in agreement, asking if he was joking. Once Bakugo returned, Izuku used the reality stone to remove the squiggles Yaoyorozu had drawn, causing Todoroki to struggle to contain his laughter. Midnight called the first 42 people who passed the finish line to the stage, announcing, "Alright, you 42 who passed will be competing in the second event. That event will be..." The roulette wheel spun behind her, stopping on Cavalry battle. A Cavalry battle. In teams of 2 to 4, you will hold up a rider. This rider will wear a headband showing their team's accumulated points. You must try and steal other teams' headbands while defending your own. 42nd place has 5 points, and 41st place is worth 10. This trend continues until first place. Izuku grinned as Midnight declared, "Izuku Midoriya's headband is worth 10 million points." He raised the gauntlet, clenching his fist and letting the stones glow. A few people backed away, having witnessed his abilities during the obstacle course. He had dismantled the ambush in an instant and retained control over the stones. Midnight announced, "You have 10 minutes to form your teams. Also, Midoriya, you have to give up another stone." Izuku plucked the soul stone from its housing and hid it within the bright light of the sun using the reality stone. He considered his options, realizing he only had 2 stones left, reality and time. He pondered which would be more advantageous for the tournament, knowing they would undoubtedly ask him to remove one for the final event. Looking around, Izuku felt it would be difficult to find a team. He asked Midnight if he could do the event alone, expressing doubt that anyone would want to team up with him, the biggest target. Midnight spoke into her earpiece before announcing, by his request, Izuku Midoriya will be working alone in the second event. The crowd erupted in excitement, having seen Izuku's power and anticipating a thrilling event. Izuku stood alone at the edge of the sandy arena, every other team focused on him, specifically the headband on his head. Midnight called the start of the second event, and every team surged toward what they perceived as a weakened Izuku. He reflected on his past experiences, recalling the fear of losing and the desperation that accompanied it. I know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. It's frightening, turns the legs to jelly. I ask you to what end? Dread it. Run from it. Destiny arrives all the same. And now it's here. Or should I say I am? Raising the Infinity Gauntlet, the reality stone shone bright crimson. The earth rose alongside his fist, turning to liquid mud and swamping the legs of the horses. The teams, once they had freed themselves, looked around, but Izuku had vanished. The game of cat and mouse continued, with Izuku going unnoticed due to the reality stone's power. As minutes passed, the teams grew desperate, focusing on Izuku's 10 million points rather than attempting to secure points from each other. Finally, Izuku released the reality stone's power, becoming visible to all. Todoroki directed his team toward him, declaring, "Sorry, Midoriya, but I'll be taking that headband." Yaoyorozu fired a tether at Izuku's left hand, but he used the reality stone to turn it into a stream of bubbles. A roll of tape wrapped around the Infinity Gauntlet, and Izuku turned to see Bakugo's team approaching. Bakugo shouted in frustration, while Azui's team approached from the right, and Shoji grabbed onto Izuku's right arm. Izuku frowned, realizing that if they took the gauntlet he would be in trouble. Yaoyorozu could take the reality stone, but no one could take time. Jiraiya hadn't been in the top just then. Todoroki reached out and took the 10 million point headband. Yaoyorozu attempted to grab the gauntlet, but it was securely wrapped in tape, leaving the reality stone untouchable. Izuku remarked, "You could not live with your own failures. And where did that bring you? Back to me." 1 minute remaining. Present Mike yelled. Todoroki nodded to Izuku and retreated, while Bakugo's team had enough points to pass, but Shoji's did not. Azui directed her team away to search for more points. Present Mike exclaimed, "Looks like Midoriya's lost his points. Is the powerhouse of 1A finally down?" Izuku chuckled, turning to Zero. "Destiny waits for no man. Not even one who shall bring the universe to its knees." The tape exploded into a flurry of bubbles, and the 10 million point headband that Todoroki had secured faded into red particles. Todoroki turned around to face Izuku as he strode toward them, revealing the 10 million point headband now around Izuku's head. "Reality can be whatever I want," Izuku declared. "Time's you up." Present Mike screeched. Yaoyorozu groaned, while Todoroki looked vaguely irritated with himself. He muttered, "That's the same trick he pulled during our first heroics lesson." Izuku laughed, patting his friend's shoulder. "It's all right, Todoroki. The reality stone can blindside even the smartest person. I'm a little disappointed in Yaoyorozu. She was there when I pulled that trick first." Midnight returned to the stage, announcing, "The final event will, of course, be a tournament. We will have a break for lunch, then the 12 of you that passed can come back for the one-on-ones. Midoriya, you know the drill." Izuku placed the time stone in the light reflected off the moon and asked, "Can I interchange the stones between matches if I want?" Midnight nodded, confirming, "You can only use one at a time, but you can use whichever you want each match." Izuku looked up at the brackets, noting his matchups. Izuku versus Kaminari, Todoroki versus Zero, Bakugo versus Uraraka, Kirishima versus Tetsutetsu, Iida versus Hatsum, and Yaoyorozu versus Ishido. He nodded, deciding he would use the reality stone against Kaminari. No offense to Zero, but it was easily Todoroki's victory. Power would probably be best there, or perhaps time. Izuku stepped up onto the platform being used as an arena. Kaminari stood at the other end, trembling slightly. "I've got no chance against him," he told Midnight. Izuku laughed, encouraging him, "I'm sure that you could if you tried." "I only have one stone after all," Izuku reassured Kaminari, who gulped nervously as Midnight started the match. "Begin," she yelled. Kaminari unleashed his shock, but Izuku quickly countered it with the reality stone. "We!" Kaminari exclaimed as Izuku pulled him out of bounds. Kaminari is out of bounds. Midoriya wins. Todoroki swiftly won his match, freezing Zero completely with his ice. Uraraka fought valiantly but ultimately lost to Bakugo. Kirishima managed to defeat his steel counterpart, Tetsu. Hatsum cleverly used Iida as a promotional tool for her inventions, but stepped out of bounds, granting Iida the victory. Yaoyorozu defeated Ishido by neutralizing the acid used against her. Izuku stepped up onto the arena for the second time, receiving a nod from Todoroki as they took their positions. The Power Stone glowed within the Infinity Gauntlet. "Start!" Midnight announced. Todoroki initiated the match with a large ice attack similar to the one he used on Zero. Izuku countered it with 20% of the Power Stone's full potential, knowing he could access a maximum of 80% without issue. "You can't beat me with just your ice, Shoto," Izuku called out. The boys exchanged smiles. "I know. I was just testing that stone of yours," Todoroki replied. Another glacier was hurled at Izuku, followed by a stream of fire. Izuku obliterated the ice and redirected the flames. "I told my father about what you said, by the way." The look on his face when he got it confirmed was priceless. Todoroki shared. Izuku grinned. "Happy to help. I'll let you borrow one of the stones to mess with him if you like." Todoroki laughed, sweeping his arm and freezing the floor. "I'll think about it," he shouted, raising columns of ice from the ground. Izuku slammed the gauntlet into the arena floor, shattering the ice pillars above him. The purple shockwave pushed Todoroki back, but not enough to send him out of bounds. "Come on, Midoriya, pull out another stone. It looks like you need it," Shoto called out. Izuku glanced at Midnight, who shrugged. Grinning, he reached up and pulled the time stone from the moonlight above. "You asked for it, Shoto." Izuku froze time and slammed his fist into the ground repeatedly, creating shockwaves. When time resumed, the shockwaves tore through the arena, sending concrete flying. Todoroki's ice was shattered, and he was thrown out of bounds. Izuku caught him with the Power Stone, lowering him gently to the ground. Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya wins. Izuku shook his friend's hand. "You're the first person to stand up to an Infinity Stone's power without multiple quirks. Well done." Todoroki smiled. "Thanks for humorously using a second one. Even though we both knew I wouldn't beat two. And you can call me by my first name, it's far better than my last one." Bakugo defeated Kirishima with sheer power, while Yaoyorozu had a bit of trouble but ultimately defeated Iida by entangling his legs and sending him flying out of bounds. Midnight stepped onto the main stage. Izuku Midoriya, Katsuki Bakugo, and Momo Yaoyorozu have all reached the final round. The finals will be a three-way battle, no holds barred. There will be no out of bounds. The only way to win is to knock out your opponents or get them to surrender. There will be a 15-minute rest PRD for the finalists, then they can step into the arena and find out who is the strongest. The crowd cheered as Midnight looked down at Izuku. "Midoriya, you will be allowed to wield every single one of the stones." Izuku plucked the glowing gemstones from the sun's rays, letting them settle into the slots on the gauntlet's knuckles. He smiled, raising his fist and flaring the colored stones brightly. "The end is near." Izuku, Yaoyorozu, and Bakugo stood in the arena, positioned a fair distance from the walls and closer to the center of the stadium. Midnight had retreated to the announcer's booth. "Are you all ready?" Midnight asked through the speakers. They nodded. "Begin." Bakugo blasted off towards Izuku instantly, a fierce snarl on his face. "I'm tired of you hogging first place, Deku. I'll put you down where you belong." Izuku frowned. Bakugo was the immediate threat, but given enough time, Yaoyorozu could be far more dangerous. He turned to the explosive boy and grabbed him by the arm, tossing him away. "Sorry, Midoriya," Yaoyorozu called, throwing an odd device at him. Izuku raised the gauntlet, attempting to use the reality stone. The device was made of so many different alloys and materials that it was incredibly difficult to manipulate. It latched onto the gauntlet, forcing his hand open. He couldn't use the stones unless he had a closed fist or at least some fingers curled in. Izuku ran at Yaoyorozu and swung his gauntlet at her. "Clever. I could do it," but I'd need concentration and time to bend that many alloys and materials to my will at once, he admitted. Yaoyorozu smiled, pulling a bow staff from her forearm. Thanks. I noticed that you always close your fist when you use a stone, so I took a gamble. Izuku threw another punch and reached out with his right hand, pulling the power stone from the gauntlet. A gamble indeed, he said, punting the girl away in a flash of purple. He turned just in time to deflect an explosion and blast Bakugo away. Yaoyorozu recovered faster than Izuku anticipated and nabbed the mind stone from the gauntlet. Holding the power stone, Izuku slammed his right fist into the ground, shattering the concrete and sending his charging opponents back. The mind stone sailed through the air, and Izuku pulled the reality stone out to hide it. Now wielding two infinity stones barehanded, Izuku felt no strain. The power stone and the reality stone could be handled together. Grinning, he touched the ground, sending out a ripple that repaired the arena. Bakugo quickly got to his feet, with Yaoyorozu right behind him. Izuku reached out with the reality stone, pulling the concrete up underneath his opponents and sending them stumbling. He put the reality stone in his pocket and pulled the soul stone out of the gauntlet, scratching his nose casually. With a swift motion, Izuku delivered a cosmic gut punch to Bakugo, taking him out. Yaoyorozu struck the back of his hand with her bow staff, causing him to drop the soul stone. Izuku kicked the soul stone away and rushed at Yaoyorozu, gripping the end of the staff with his right hand. You're down to 3 stones, Midoriya. One was in your pocket that you couldn't reach, and the other 2 were in the gauntlet, which you couldn't use, Yaoyorozu said triumphantly. Izuku smiled and revealed the object held between his teeth. The power stone fired a beam of purple light, atomizing the device on his left hand. Izuku clenched his fist, the space stone glowing bright blue. The mind, soul, power, and reality stones were warped into their rightful places, adorning the Infinity Gauntlet. You should have gone for the head, Izuku said, raising his hand and snapping his fingers. A purple and yellow shockwave blew Yaoyorozu back, knocking her out. Izuku caught her with the space and power stones and lowered her to the ground gently. Yaoyorozu and Bakugo are unconscious. Midoriya wins the sports festival. The crowd roared while Izuku used the time and reality stones to heal his opponents. All Might himself awarded the medals. Bakugo was in third, who begrudgingly accepted his medal. Yaoyorozu was second and was congratulated by All Might on her ingenious strategy. Young Midoriya, congratulations on getting first place. I have to ask, however. You held back, did you not? All Might asked quietly. Just a little bit. I did need to get pretty serious in the final match though. I almost swallowed the power stone, Izuku replied. All Might gave Izuku his medal and turned back to the crowd. Now, I think there's just one thing left to say, isn't there? Plus Ultra. Everyone shouted. Thank you for your hard work. All Might said. There was a pause. Sorry. I just thought they worked really hard, he said sheepishly. Izuku received a phone call the morning after the UA Sports Festival. Good morning, Iida. What's up? Izuku asked tiredly, blinking his sleep away. Midoriya. You have healing powers, right? Iida asked. Izuku sat up immediately. What's wrong, Iida? What happened? He asked quickly. My brother. He was hurt by the hero killer, Stain. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you try and heal him? Iida asked. The reality stone glowed deep crimson, and Izuku was suddenly in his casual clothes. He activated the space stone, opening a portal next to Iida's soul. I'm here, where is he? Izuku asked. Iida jumped. Midoriya. I forgot you could do that. He's in the room just here, the spectacled boy said, gesturing to the door across from him. Izuku nodded, following the boy inside. Ingenium was in bad shape. He was hooked up to every kind of machine there was, and then some more. His entire lower half was wrapped in gauze, while his chest had a few bandages around it. Tenya. Who's this? A woman asked. She looked just like her sons. Mother, this is Izuku Midoriya. He's my classmate and has powerful healing abilities. I asked if he could help us, Tenya said. Izuku bowed politely. I am confident in my abilities. I have even healed people who were missing parts in the past. I'm sure that I can help Ingenium just as well. Mrs. Iida nodded, stepping back. If you think you can, we would be incredibly grateful, she said. Izuku summoned the Infinity Gauntlet, holding it over the eldest brother's torso. He opened his hand, a green ring encasing his wrist, the time, reality, mind, and soul stones glowing in their respective colors. I might be able to save his memories, although it's probably better if he forgot what happened, Izuku said. Tenya shook his head. He would want to know. He's a hero, it's his job. If you can, please let him keep his memories, he said. Izuku nodded. How long ago did you last see him? General time is okay? He asked. Tenya thought for a second. About, 24 hours or so. We left the house at the same time. He wished me good luck, he replied. Izuku grinned. Don't touch him until I say, but he's going to be fine. Izuku twisted his hand to the left. The stones shone brighter, reversing the entirety of Ingenium's body by 24 hours, except his brain. Izuku kept him calm with the Mind Stone and checked over his spirit with the Soul Stone. It took 7 minutes to rewind him completely back. Izuku sighed, releasing the gauntlet. He could walk right out of those doors now if he wanted to. No injuries or ailments of any kind, Izuku said. Tensei Iida opened his eyes. That didn't go too well, he muttered, eyeing the medical equipment around him. Tensei, you're all right? Tenya exclaimed. Yeah. Strangely I am, the eldest replied. Izuku stood outside the Iida's room, his phone to his ear. Sorry, I needed to go out for something important. Iida's brother was badly hurt. He asked me to heal him. I don't know, but I can ask when they're finished hugging and whatnot. I can portal back anyway. Yeah, see you in a bit. Izuku slipped his phone back into his pocket just as Tenya came into the corridor. Is he all good? Izuku asked. Iida nodded. Thank you so much, Midoriya. There is no way I can repay you, he said, bowing deeply. Izuku frowned. You can start by not going after Stain on a revenge spree. How do you think you'll be able to defeat Stain where Ingenium failed? Iida flinched. I'm the class representative, Iida. It's my job to look out for my classmates. If anyone's going to help capture Stain, it'll be me. I'll ask for an internship in Hosu, and if I come across the hero killer, then I'll intervene. Saving whoever he's trying to kill will be my priority though, Izuku continued. Iida looked a little shamefaced now. I'm sorry for considering going after Stain. I'm just so angry? I know. So am I. Stain has ideals and I almost agree with them. There's just the tiny problem I have with manslaughter. But now he goes after one of the few good heroes? He's just killing for the sake of it. Or at least trying to, Izuku finished. Mrs. Iida opened the door. The doctors say he's completely okay. He can leave the hospital whenever he wants, so he's putting some clothes on, rather than just pants. Izuku nodded. That's good. I'm glad he's okay. He's a good hero. One of the best, actually. I need to get home. I left without warning, and I'm currently in my pajamas, he said. You are clearly in regular clothes, Midoriya, Iida said, swatting his arms about. Illusion. I'll see you at school, Iida. Tell your brother about our conversation too, he can help. Iida nodded. I will. Thank you again, Midoriya. Izuku summoned the Infinity Gauntlet, stepping back into a light blue portal. Please don't wake me up at 8 on the weekend again. Not unless you've got your hands stuck in a vending machine or something. I'll gladly get up for that, Izuku said with a smile. Iida frowned and replied, Why would I? Midoriya, good morning. Izuku turned to see Iida's speed walking toward him. How are you this morning? Iida asked. I am doing very well, thank you. My brother is being forced to stay at home for a few days before going back to work. However, he has told me he sent in internship offers for both of us. Iida smiled. Izuku grinned. The Ingenium sent me an internship offer? Iida snorted. You saved his career, Midoriya. It's the least he could do. Also, my mother has extended you the offer of dinner at our house sometime in the future. Tell her thank you, I'd be glad to come over. I'm free whenever you like, Iida, Izuku replied. The youngest Iida sighed, adjusting his glasses. That is going to get very confusing very quickly. Tenya is fine, he said with a smile. Izuku and Iida arrived in their homeroom and sat down at their desks. Aizawa rolled through the door soon afterward, standing at his desk. Well done in the sports festival. You all received plenty of internship offers. Now, before you can go out into the field, there's something you need to do, he said. The class tensed up. You need to choose hero names. And since I'm not qualified for that, Midnight will be helping you. The heroine barged through the door at that moment, cracking her whip. All right, let's get some names going, she said. Izuku stood up in front of his classmates. The gauntlet hero, Infinity, he said simply. Excellent, Midoriya. Next. Midnight replied. So, who are you interning with? Yaoyorozu asked. I'm going to take Ingenium's offer. I think Iida's going too, so we'll be working together. Where are you thinking about going? He asked. Yaoyorozu considered for a moment. I'm not really sure. I got a few good offers, but none have really caught my eye. Izuku hummed thoughtfully. If there are any battle-oriented heroes, you could improve your hand-to-hand or weapons training, he suggested. Yaoyorozu nodded. I was thinking the same. Anyway, what do you think we'll be doing in today's heroics lesson? Is it going to be as chaotic as the previous ones? She asked with a smile. Izuku chuckled. We'll see. Aizawa's got a special lesson planned with All Might. I don't think anyone is going to like it. All Might had taken the students to Gym Gamma. Neither he nor Aizawa had explained anything to the others. Today's lesson will be different. You won't be doing any typical hero stuff, but this is still training. Now, do any of you know what your greatest fear is? Aizawa asked. Most of the students shook their heads. Todoroki, Izuku, Bakugo, Iida, and Uraraka nodded. Aizawa turned to All Might. Do you know what your greatest fear is? I know mine. All Might nodded. I do. I have also faced that fear head-on, he said solemnly. Would you mind if Midoriya showed the class? Aizawa asked. All Might nodded to Izuku. Go ahead, young Midoriya. Be warned, it's probably not going to be pretty. Izuku activated the Mind Stone, peering into All Might's thoughts. There was a man in All Might's thoughts. A middle-aged man with short white hair, wearing a black suit. His eyes were shadowed, but his mouth was twisted into a cruel grin. At his feet lay all of Class 1A. He wore the Infinity Gauntlet on his left arm, the stones shining brightly. Izuku was held by the hair in his right fist. A woman in a plain hero costume was alongside 1A, beneath the man's feet. A shorter, elderly hero in a bright yellow costume was beside her. All Might himself was kneeling before the man, bloodied and beaten, his strength gone. A hulking giant held All Might down with one hand. Izuku turned off the Mind Stone. I'm not showing the class that, he said. All Might nodded. I apologize, young Midoriya. I did not realize it would be that gruesome. Who is he? Izuku asked. The hero sighed. He was a great and terrible villain, long dead now though. I made sure of it. Aizawa sighed. Well, that's the purpose of the demonstration gone, he commented. He turned to the class. Midoriya is going to draw out and show you your greatest fears. If you don't mind sharing with the class, he can project it in the air. If you want to keep it to yourself and face your fears alone, that's okay too. Is there anyone who doesn't mind revealing their fears? He asked. Iida raised his hand. I do not mind. I believe I know what my greatest fear is. Izuku nodded, raising the gauntlet. Ingenium had fallen. The city was in ruins, and Stain stood above all, the judge, jury, and executioner of all heroes. Iida was kneeling beside his brother, his Achilles tendons cut by Stain. Izuku was there once again, and again he was dead, the Infinity Gauntlet nowhere in sight. Ingenium couldn't be saved a second time. Iida gasped as Izuku released the Mind Stone. You endured that well. Most would wake up screaming, Izuku said. I have faced my fear once before. Fortunately, you were able to help me, Midoriya, he huffed. Izuku nodded, turning to the class. Who wants to face their fears next? The students of Class 1A had many fears. Some feared losing loved ones, some feared being alone, and some feared villains they had run into as kids. There were a few interesting ones though. Bakugo was afraid of Izuku. He had refused to have his fears projected for the class to see, so only they knew. Yaoyorozu was afraid of being alone, that she'd always be seen as the snooty rich girl when all she wanted was to get along. Uraraka was afraid for her family. She wanted her parents to be okay but feared something would happen to them before she could make money for them to live easily. Kaminari was afraid he would never be taken seriously, that everyone would just laugh at him until he died. Mina was afraid of the giant figure from All Might's Fear. Where had she seen him? Kirishima was afraid that he wasn't good enough. He was afraid of becoming a failure and not living up to Crimson Riot's name. The class quickly reached its conclusion. Midoriya, you're forgetting someone. Mina said. Oh right, yeah you are, dude. Kirishima added. Izuku raised his eyebrow. What is your greatest fear? Mina asked. Izuku shuddered. Spiders. I really hate the things. Just scuttle about in the most horrible way, he said. That seemed to satisfy most of the class. Iida seemed to doubt that answer, as did Yaoyorozu. Aizawa raised his eyebrow at Izuku. Izuku activated the Mind Stone, letting Aizawa see his fear. Izuku was standing alone inside Class 1A. Everyone else's souls had passed to the other side. Only bodies surrounded him. He had just finished his confrontation with Yaoyorozu and turned to the window. She lay motionless on the floor. Everything was in ruins. There was a sea of dust as far as the eye could see. The dust was mainly stone gray, but there were a few splatters of red here and there. The only thing left was the 1A classroom. Izuku wore a victorious grin on his face as he stared directly at Izuku and Aizawa. He proclaimed, I am inevitable. With a snap of his fingers, everything went white.